So, ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you just to sit down? We would like to continue. I think we all have got a very good impression about what is ongoing in Europe. Vice President Skinas told us about all the different issues that are ongoing, and I think in the first round we have now the opportunity to talk to two ministers from the north of Europe, from Sweden. New minister here with us, Maria Stenergard. Thank you very much for joining us. And from Greece, hotspot of migration over years, we have Dimitris Kairidis, the new Minister for Migration. Thank you very much for joining us also today. And I think what we should do within the next half hour is just to look a little bit the way forward. We have been, of course, discussing with the Vice President the pact on asylum and migration. This is one of the main issues coming up, and as we have two members of the Council with us, negotiating this, we could maybe in the first round hear a little bit your assessment, what's ongoing and what you expect that will happen. And I would like, of course, to ask with you, Maria, to ask you a little bit also a reflection what the Commissioner said. What is the point of view of Sweden? Are you really confident that this will happen? Please, Maria.
Thank you so much. And first of all, thank you for arranging this very important meeting in this beautiful town of Vienna. I'm really happy to be here and to be able to meet with you all. I'm the Minister for Migration of Sweden, and I took office more or less exactly 1 year ago. And after 2 months, we entered into presidency of the Council. And as you are all very well aware of, it's intensive times negotiating the pact. And there was this, I would also say, like Mrs. Skinas said, that it was a historical moment on the 8th of June when we agreed on the AMMR and APR, the really difficult files on how to handle, for instance, solidarity, but also the border procedures. And I'm very happy for the success last week of the Spanish presidency on the crisis regulation. So now we are ready to move on with Parliament, and this is thanks to many presidents before us who've done such a hard work, and I'm so thankful for that. I'm like Mr. Skinas, I'm very hopeful. I think that now we have a momentum, and that was also, I think, why we finally reached an agreement. I think that almost all member states realize that it is now or never, that the current situation is unbearable, that we have to find a new solution. And of course, not all the solutions lie in the pact, but I think that's a very important step. I think that equally important is what Mr. Skinas, who is very wise, called the elephant in the room, namely the external dimension. And I would not say that it is still the elephant in the room. I would say that all countries are discussing this and realizing that this is the way to move forward. I just came back from a visit to Kenya, visiting one of the world's largest refugee camps called Kakuma in the northwestern parts, hosting 300,000 refugees. Almost all of them have asylum rights, but none of them has the possibility to pay the smugglers to go to Europe. They are stuck there. We have to realize that we have to invest in their future, in fighting the root causes of migration, for instance, climate change, creating resilience. And at the same time, I see at Lampedusa a lot of mainly men coming from countries like Tunisia, Egypt, Ivory Coast, and Guinea, where at least in Sweden they have a recognition rate of between 0 and 13%, which is very low. So this is mainly economical migrants who place their lives and savings in the hands of smugglers. So this is an extremely dysfunctional system. So what I'm trying to say is the pact is important. Why? Because at a very early stage, we can sort those out who probably have asylum rights, and then we can try to handle those who probably do not have asylum rights quite fast. The key thing here is returns. Because if we do not manage returns, and I'm sure my colleague from Greece will also come into that, then the new system won't work. And that is why the external dimension is so crucial. So, to conclude, fighting root causes, but also cooperate, like Mr. Skina so wisely pointed to, cooperate with countries of origin and transit, third countries, in order to build migration handling capacity and create a better life in those countries.
Thank you very much, Maria. May I also ask you, Dimitris, what do you think about what's ongoing with the pact in Brussels, and what is your assessment, what could be done more maybe, just to convince also the countries that are not so much in favor of it, just to find a good solution before we come to the next round? Please.
I think there is no doubt that it is a positive step on the right direction, but it is not the final destination, that we will need to continue working on further strengthening our cooperation and coordination. We have our own reservations about the pact, including the fact that we would have liked much stronger solidarity, which is the key word for Europe's south. But obviously we are very big supporters, and we will vote for it, both in the Council and in the European Parliament, with a majority of Greek MPs, because we are firmly committed to European solutions. I think the key development was the cooperation between Germany and Italy, because they span the whole mainstream political spectrum, these two countries, from the German Greens to the Italian Fratelli d'Italia, the Conservatives. The fact that both sides agreed to vote for it, despite their differences, provided for the compromise needed to move forward. As a result, it's the left and the far right that have been left out. The Greens are split, in the European Parliament I mean, between the German Greens that will support and the rest. And the Conservatives are split between Meloni, which is supporting, the old Europeans, let me maybe put it this way, as opposed to Kaczynski and Orban. So from Meloni to Baerbock and the Greens, I think we have a solid, strong majority, close to 3/4 of the vote in favor. Now, these days, fate has brought me to have to work very closely together with Swedes, both because our dear colleague from the Swedish government, which I have met before in Brussels and in Spain, and I look forward to meeting in other councils, but also because the commissioner responsible for migration and home affairs is from Sweden, Ylva Johansson, a very respected politician from a different political persuasion, but practical and definitely not naive. And obviously the from Frontex, we have ongoing relationship, despite some occasional hiccups that we have there. So I think this condominium between the very south that Greece is and the very north that Sweden is very promising for a Europe that is practical and not naive. We were naive in Greece, obviously in 2015, with the previous government, but I'm sure that Sweden as well had its own share of naivete. And we see the results today in the streets of Stockholm or Uppsala, etc. So the challenge is to provide for solutions within the European framework. the European values and the European commitment to law. And I think you can do it despite the problems. But I do not think that the pact is the big celebration that my dear friend and compatriot Margaritis, for obvious reasons, would like to portray. It's a very big thing. It took us years to achieve it, but it's only a stepping stone. And for sure, we should not relax and say, now we've achieved it. It's a constantly evolving issue, migration, with new challenges, and we have to keep running, not to fall behind.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for that. I think one of the issues discussing is this external dimension. You mentioned it also. I think as you have been in Kenya, what is the Swedish government looking at? Agreements here and there, just to find solutions with the most burning issues in the countries of origin. Give us a little bit an insight what you are doing in this way.
Well, Sweden has a history of spending a lot of money on development aid. So now we have a new approach in the government, a whole of government approach, which is a very fine expression, but it's truly important. So now the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Aid and Trade, as I call him, and me, we are cooperating very closely in order to make sure that we speak in one voice when we come to countries. So for instance, Somalia, if we are helping them with loads of money in order to try to build a better society, more security, and also fight climate change. But at the same time, we have to talk about them readmitting their own citizens. We have 6,000 people in Sweden waiting to be readmitted to Somalia, but we have problems with cooperation there. But we're having a very close dialogue now, which includes all aspects, and I think that that is truly important, and it's important that the Minister for Migration and the Minister for instance, Aid has the same message when we speak with other countries. And I must say, and this was also important during the Swedish presidency, that the EU bodies must work in the same way, with the same goal, in cooperation with other countries, because I'm sure that all parts will have to feel that they benefit from the cooperation. So I think that we all see the value in investing in countries to make them more stable, to make them more resilient towards climate change, and to fight poverty. And at the same time, while we do these investments, we also have to point to the fact that countries need to respect international law and their obligation to accept their own citizens. So more of a whole of government approach, I would say that is truly, truly important.
Thank you very much, Maria. May I also ask you, Dimitris, about these issues? Interesting neighborhood, as Greece has. There are some also very positive signals with Turkey, your neighbor. How to tackle this in future?
First of all, when it comes to aid, and obviously Sweden is a protagonist there, Europe is a superpower in developmental aid, but often it doesn't coordinate it well. We have different portfolios in the Commission for different regions of Europe. Verily, the Hungarian commissioner is responsible for the neighborhood, whereas there is another portfolio for developmental aid to Africa, and another one for Ukrainians, and then there are the national governments, etc. We had a public relations disaster only yesterday with the aid to Palestine, and you saw what happened with the contradictory statements from the various agencies and countries, which shows you that we continue, as they say, punching below our weight. We have to start punching according to our weight or above our way, and this is a challenge, and link aid with our policy. As Schinas loves to say, more for more, less for less. If you comply, I reward you, and if you don't, I will not. External is very much connected as well, because and I was listening this whole morning to internal. You see dimension. You see that very well in Greece. Greece, in a sense, we have to understand the physics of migratory flows. Greece is in between the pushing and the pulling. We have to do something about the pushing, the external dimension, that pushes people towards Europe, either in the countries of origin or in transit countries like Turkey. Although Turkey is becoming a country of origin on its own right as well. But then we should not forget the pooling, the great magnet that we have created in the north, bringing in people and occasionally increasing that attractiveness rather than doing something with it, this magnetism. With Greece in between, having to deal with the consequences of this physics of migration. Now, with Turkey, things are promising. After a period of great problems and troubles, after 2018 until recently, until the earthquakes, we have seen a change of heart. Greece was always very supportive of Turkey's European vocation. It is a strategic goal of Greece and Greek foreign policy to link Turkey with Europe. It's other countries who have not been as supportive, and I will be discreet since I am in Vienna after all, not to elaborate further on that. So we have been neighbors in good faith. We have our disagreements, obviously, and great complaints about past Turkish behavior. But we do understand that Turkey is a key country in dealing with illegal, irregular migration. It directly affects Greece, Bulgaria, Malta, Italy, and Cyprus, and indirectly most of Europe through secondary flows from Greece and the rest. So we have to cooperate together. Turkey has its own problems with this huge migration and refugee population, the biggest in Europe by far. And we have to be partners and through cooperation benefit all rather than the smugglers. And so we are exploring all channels, and I have to admit that my original contacts with my new Turkish counterpart have been very productive, and I'm going to Ankara. It has just been confirmed on the 23rd of October. Within the broader context of political dialogue that we have with the Turkish government. And we're going to have an intergovernmental big council meeting in December, like the ones that France and Germany from time to time have. And by that time, we hope to have something more formal in our cooperation. Already, we see coordination on the ground. There is a long way to go. And Turkey is in a very volatile region, and things can change at any moment. So we have to be cautious, but nevertheless daring in fully exploiting the window of opportunity.
Thank you very much for that.
And we want our European partners, including Austria. I had a very sincere chat last night with my Austrian counterpart on his way to Ankara. And I had one with the German counterpart. And we want Sweden as well on board, because together we can make the partnership more tempting and rewarding for both sides.
Thank you very much for that, Dimitris. I would like to use the opportunity to give also you the chance to ask some things to the ministers. I think Marlin will be so kind to collect everything so that we have some time also with reflections from your side. I think everybody knows how to use this instrument.
What comes next? Yes. So we will collect questions both from the online audience and you here in person. Please raise your hand. There are colleagues who are helping with the mics, state your name and keep your question short and crisp, or your comment short and crisp.
With a question mark.
With a question mark, with a question mark ideally at the end, that would be great. I see one here.
Vít Novotný. I work at the Martin Center in Brussels. I have a question for Minister Stenergard. When the Swedish government came to office last year, there was some talk of using Swedish development aid conditional upon third countries' cooperation on migration. This is let's say, a very difficult and painful topic at the EU level. But what about the national level, where the governments in the EU were very reluctant to use this conditionality? So is there any progress in Sweden on this?
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments? One more. Same row. Inspiration is contagious.
Hello, I'm Claudia Masi, political advisor from the EPP in Brussels. My question would be on the trilogues, which will start now after the crisis mechanism was deblocked beginning of October. And I know there are divergent opinions from the Council, from the Parliament on this. Are you optimistic when you look at the trilogues? Of course, there also need to be, there needs to be a compromise in the end in order to proceed with the vote, latest by April next year. So, my question would be on the trilogues and especially on the crisis mechanism, because I think this will be the most difficult part. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other hands. Please raise them high if I'm missing anyone. No? Then we had two questions. One to Minister Stenergard on the role of conditionality, aid and migration objectives. And a second one, I think, to both ministers on the trialogues and if you're optimistic, specifically the recent agreement on the crisis mechanism from the Council, and now comes Parliament.
Maria, please,
yes.
if you would like to start.
Thank you. Yes, so that's correct. We're overhauling the Swedish development aid system. And of course, I think that the taxpayers find it difficult to send a lot of money, which is sort of their view, to countries who refuse to cooperate with Sweden. So but it's not that easy. But we're not touching the humanitarian aid. So this is the aid that is going to the state or organizations close to the state, the development aid. And I think it's quite natural when you come, like I said, with a whole of government approach to say that we would be happy to cooperate with you. We would be happy to help you with money as well. But in return, we also want you to, for instance, accept your own citizens that have, for instance, committed crime in Sweden are supposed to go back. I think it's quite reasonable, and I believe that we have a great support in Sweden for that. But you have to be careful, of course. So when it comes to the second question, I am optimistic. So there was this one parliamentarian who said, let's just lock everyone up and not be able to celebrate Christmas until they have reached an agreement. I think that is the way to go, because there is not going to be a better time to find a solution than now. I am worried, and I think we will get back to this, that the negotiations will be taken hostage before the elections to be used in the election campaign. We cannot afford that. We have to come to a decision, and the sooner the better, so that all parliamentarians then can move into election mode. That would be my short answer.
Thank you very much, Maria. Dimitris.
Yes, I think we should not only use, to put it bluntly, the carrot of aid, but also the stick of sanctions. To go even further in our approach with countries that should take back nationals, their nationals, if their asylum applications are rejected. I mean, for asylum system to work, you need to have returns. Returns, returns, returns. Without returns, you don't have an asylum system, you have a mockery. And I cannot spend 2 years in processing asylum applications and going through the courts and the whole procedure to award or not to award asylum, and at the end of the day, no matter what, everybody stays. I mean, it is, and spend billions in legal and other expenses, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's ridiculous. And I think UNHCR has realized that, and, but it should do more. The UN bodies, I think, that have been the guardians of asylum to work on the returns. It's a painful subject, it's a politically highly charged subject. The vast majority of UN member states are countries of origin rather than recipient, but they all must understand that. And we can only do that united as Europe, bringing sanctions about countries. We did it a little bit with Iraq, and we had some results, but when it comes to Pakistan or African countries, etc., we cannot do it on our own. And right now, the percentage of returns is ridiculously low because the countries of origin do not cooperate. And this opens us, make us all very vulnerable to attack from the far right. We are trying to defend the asylum system, we are trying to defend the convention, but at the end of the day we will fail if we don't have that a key component of the convention, which is the return in our hands. Now, as far as the pact is concerned, I think we will proceed because everybody understands that the cost of failure is so much greater. And I have seen that in Rome, this tend to realism, and in Berlin, and so I'm optimistic. It will be with qualified majority. I don't see how one can convince Viktor Orban, and we will have to wait for the Polish election results, although I'm not overly optimistic about a change of heart in Warsaw. I do note that Austria, the Czechs, and the Slovaks abstain from voting down on the compromise, which is positive and which is within the overall need for a productive compromise. Everybody has complaints. It cannot be otherwise. And it shows you how difficult and thorny this issue has been. But I remain optimistic that we will manage before the elections, the Euro elections.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. So I think we have 2 questions also from online. We can maybe include it in the last round that we are talking about. One is about perspective developments 2024, and the second is about what kind of role you think legal migration will play in the future. So maybe, and this is also an opportunity for you to give final remarks. Maybe we can start with you, Dimitris.
Migration management, from the little I understand after 3 months on the job, is occasionally a psychiatric occupation, managing schizophrenia, because people are angry for foreigners coming, and they are also angry for the fact that not enough foreigners are not coming to fill in the vacuums in the labor market. This has a direct influence on the contradictions and polarizations within the electorate. The productive parts of Greek society, the entrepreneurs, the professionals, the people in the big cities, in the dynamic sectors of the economy like construction and tourism, farming, high tech, very much want to bring in immigrants in an orderly way, obviously, in a legal way, not through, nobody wants the irregularity of crossing borders, etc., etc. There is another component of Greek society, and I'm sure this is the case everywhere in Europe, mostly the pensioners, who are much more negative towards any kind of immigration, because they don't depend on foreign labor. They get their pension from the state, secure in their living of standards, and they don't want foreigners. You know, they are older people. They want Greece the way they remember it when they were young. They don't like to have Muslim, blacks, you know, non-Greek speaking around. This is a conversation I occasionally have with my mother, for example. Although she's open-minded for her age. We have to find the arguments and to calibrate the discourse in order to make this proceed. You cannot have your pension unless someone pays social security into the system. So you need workers. In order for your pension to remain where it is and not shrink, because it will shrink as the labor pool shrinks, in order to preserve your standard of living, you need people to work. And if there are not enough Greeks to work, then you might need some foreigners as well. So there are arguments that can persuade even the more intransigent part of the electorate to understand the necessities and the realities. In Greece, the way we approach the subject of labor shortage is the following. First, we need to reduce unemployment. We still have the second highest in Europe. Second, we need to increase the participation of the general population in the labor market, of the active population, between 18 and 65. We have the lowest percentage in Europe, less than 60%. Sweden is a champion with more than 75%. So we need to bring more Greeks who are not in the labor market, they don't have jobs, or they are not interested in a job, into the labor pool. Third, we need to bring Greeks from abroad, those who left during the crisis, and we are talking about more than 500,000 Greeks. But then we really need to do something about professions that no Greek will do, either very heavy menial or very high-tech talented, into the pool. Something that most Greeks don't know, and they are surprised when I tell them on TV, because this is the power of the media and the way media frames the debate, is the fact that the immigrant population in Greece has shrunk during the last 5 years. It has not increased. We had a very big number of Albanians leaving Greece for better jobs and salaries in Italy and elsewhere, more than a little bit less than 200,000. And many of those coming in Greece irregularly, illegally, as soon as they take asylum, or even before, continue on other Schengen areas. So it's not that Greece has been flooded. The one thing that we need to overcome is crossing borders like that. This is something that the vast majority of Greeks, like the vast majority of Europeans, will never accept. It's very disorienting. It makes a mockery of the rule of law. It makes a mockery of Europe. Europe has borders, and a border means guarding it, defending it, protecting it, managing it, put whatever verb you need, but you cannot have a situation where everybody can cross at will or with the help of smugglers. We are recalibrating the discourse, because migration is such a dynamic phenomenon, and I conclude, we are between two extremes. The one extreme is the trauma of 2015, when the Greek people were really shocked and traumatized, when almost 1 million people came, the Greek islands exploded, it was the first time ever. I mean, and even the little bit increase in influx triggers anxiety that we might relive 2015. Okay, so the influx that we had during the summer made big headline news, and I pay for it personally, both as a government and personally. You understand? The second is that we had a very low flow during the pandemic because of our policies and because of the pandemic in 21. And many Greeks thought that they resolved the issue of migration. It's gone. It's no more with us. So they are both surprised, unhappily surprised, and too anxious with the help of the media, with the help of certain politicians. We had 2 days ago local elections and the second round coming up this Sunday. And I know what it means to run in the islands, in the border. So everybody is there to exploit. We have to move from these extremes of a flood or no migration to understanding that this is a problem here to stay, that needs constant managing for the benefit of Greek society, European society. And we need solutions that will provide for legal pathways of migration according to our own needs and priorities, but also to be more effective in guarding borders and the external dimension as well. I'm sorry I took too much time.
Thank you very much, Dimitris. Maria, may I ask you for your assessment?
Thank you. I think I will be a little bit more brief. But as regards question number one, what do I foresee in terms of migration policy developments for 2024? I think two things. Given that the pact is in place, I think that the number one is what I've been speaking a lot about, the external dimension. I think it will only intensify the discussion and the demands for action. So I think we need to enhance cooperation with IOM and UNHCR, who have ears and eyes on the ground and a deep knowledge on what we need to invest in these countries in order to make cooperation work better. I also believe that we will have to investigate innovative solutions within the current legal framework. For instance, is there a possibility to create return centers in a third country for persons who already have a decision on return? Such solutions, I think, will be discussed. And the second thing is, from 2024 and the years to come, I think implementation of the pact is crucial. So the Commission has a really important role in making sure that the pact is actually implemented as it is supposed to. So we have a better trust now in the European Union than we had a couple of years ago, but it's still fragile. So we need to trust that every country is doing its part, and there the Commission has a very important role in monitoring the implementation. As regards labor market, we are making quite big changes in Sweden. I know that many countries within the EU have demographic problems ahead and are in need of huge labor migration. We are in a little bit different situation, I would say, in Sweden. So we will focus more on qualified, highly skilled people coming to Sweden. That's essential for our companies to be able to compete on a very tough global market. But on the other hand, we say it's not reasonable that people come from the other end of the world to work in thousands every year, to work only in fast food restaurants or in cleaning, while at the same time we have so many people from other countries who do not yet support themselves but live from public subsidies. So what we need to do is two things: change the rules on public subsidies so that when you change from living from subsidies to getting your first job, maybe, then there should be a significant difference in what you actually earn each month, what you get each month. And secondly, we will raise the salary requirements for people who want to come from third countries to Sweden from, it's only like 1,300 euros a month that is required now, which is quite low, so we will more than double it. And to focus more on qualified, highly skilled migrants.
Thank you very much, Maria. Ladies and gentlemen, I think these have been very important insights to national policy, Sweden in Greece. And before we are going the next step, I really would like to thank the two panelists, the two ministers, for having this opportunity to discuss with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Maria Stenergard
Thank
and
you.
Dimitris Kairidis. Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.